first few years of teaching, I thought the only way to effectively teach and engage my students was by individually creating each lesson. My Sundays were consumed by lesson planning, aiming to create the best lesson for each lesson and every subject area. It's no surprise that after 2 years, I was burned out. Sound familiar? Hi, I'm Sarah Porsnellick, and today's topic is centered around how teachers may be able to adapt the resources they already have at their disposal rather than recreating the wheel for every lesson. Because unfortunately, starting from scratch for every lesson is a fool's errand. In the past, when I've talked to teachers about teaching mathematics in an engaging, equitable, and accessible way, I can see the gears turning in their heads. Where will I come up with the extra time to create these lessons? The textbook or resources provided by the district or school are already developed for me. Can I just use them as is? Although I have seen excellent content in mathematics textbooks in the past, often based on research-based practices, these textbooks can sometimes have an overwhelming amount of teacher instructions, or the opposite. They may lack the appropriate amount of guidance for you to be able to adjust your instruction accordingly to meet your needs and your students' needs. When reflecting on your practice, my advice is to choose what area you wish to develop and what the needs are in your classroom. Then you can take the resources you have available or ones you find easily and adjust them accordingly. The hope is that you learn how to easily and quickly make adjustments within that focus area and then can move on to another area of focus. Let's take a look at an example of what I mean. I Googled word problems multiplication 4th grade, which, as you can imagine, populated lots of results. I found this worksheet in a matter of 15 seconds. Here are some questions I might keep in mind when thinking of how to adjust the resource. What are the needs of my students at this time? What area am I focusing on in my own instruction? And how much time and capacity do I have to adjust this resource? Now, let's pretend that these are how I answered those questions. My students are struggling with word problems and making sense of the information and context given to develop a corresponding equation. I'm focusing on using questioning to guide thinking and using abstract and representational strategies to teach word problems. And like many teachers, I have little time to adjust this resource for one lesson, 5 to 10 minutes maximum. Perfect. Now I can go about making the adjustments. When I look at this resource and think about my students, I know that immediately if they see this many word problems, they'll be overwhelmed and shut down. Some will rush and start guessing. I want students to go deep into their thinking. Remember, it's quality over quantity. So I'm only going to use the first 2 word problems for my lesson. I cut and pasted them into a separate Word document. Next, I know I'm focusing on questioning and abstract and concrete approaches. So I generate a few questions for each task that I can have on hand in order to guide their thinking. I also adjusted the problems to ask students to prove their answers using a drawing, model, or manipulatives. During my lesson, I will also have students explain their thinking to one another and have them repeat the reasoning of others. So now that I have a resource that's a bit elevated, it's meeting more of my needs as a teacher and my students' needs, which took me about 6 minutes to adjust. If you work on a team of teachers and each divide up tasks, you could effectively adjust many tasks and resources in a short amount of time. When helping teachers grow professionally or listening to them, a common concern in here is that time is a struggle. Time for learning themselves is scarce. Implementing new tools, resources, and strategies makes it difficult to learn and grow because of the time constraints that we have as teachers. However, making minor adjustments like this to resources that you have access to can hopefully help you learn while also meeting the needs of your students. As someone once said somewhere, work smarter, not harder. Until next time, thanks for listening.